But let us get back to the tinnitus spikes. So the first thing for me is to use the survey tool. Use the survey tool to analyze what might have caused your tinnitus spike, right? So you can go and download the formula and write it out yourself whenever you have a tinnitus spike, what might have been the issues around that. In my coachings, I do that with my clients, and then we talk about the different things that occurred at the same time with the tinnitus spike. And regularly, we're able to identify the areas why the tinnitus actually spiked. The second part that I want to tell you is try to keep the reactivity towards the tinnitus at a minimum. So if you're feeling self-pity, self-doubt, or you're even blaming yourself because the tinnitus has spiked, this is not helpful at all, because that will create the emotional and raise the emotional reactivity in your brain that is causing more anxiety and more reaction in your brain. You're stressed, that causes stress hormones to rise, adrenaline, cortisol, and so on and so forth. And the activity in your brain will increase. Also in the auditory cortex, your tinnitus will be perceived as higher. So in order to best go through a tinnitus spike, we use general practices of, for example, the survey to find out, can we maybe prevent the spike somehow? And on the other side, normal tools of tinnitus management. If you can be still and weather the storm when you are in a tinnitus spike. So when you are in that situation and the tinnitus is really unbearable for a while, right? It is a spike. We have other topics on why tinnitus masking is sometimes not too recommended, but it can help to try and mask the spike. And you don't even need to match the volume, because maybe the spike is quite loud, and matching the volume would maybe danger your hearing already. So what I would recommend is you don't try to mask it, but you use another comfortable sound that you can hook your attention on. So it's a little bit easier to forget about the tinnitus a bit more and hook your attention on the masking sound, right? So this is the strategy. Anything that you can do in order to keep the reactivity to a minimum will help you to weather the storm of the tinnitus spike, and will also help to decrease the anxiety and the triggeredness that is happening in your brain, which is causing the spike in the first place. So the calmer you remain, the more probable it is that your tinnitus spike will go back to its base levels, or that your tinnitus will go down to the level that you had before. Reverting back to the journal, if you don't know what causes the spike is, try and keep the journal or the diary, the spike diary, for a few months, and then go back and evaluate. Maybe there were some patterns that are similar and that lead to the assumption that maybe there was something that caused a spike that you could prevent in future. Another way of dealing with spikes, especially when they come from alcohol or caffeine or substances like that, is we can either avoid these substances, creating a higher pressure on dealing with our tinnitus. And now we say, I had to give up beer and caffeine. That's because my tinnitus gets bad when that happens. Or you say, I am having that coffee or I am having that beer when I am with my friends or with family, and I calculate that tinnitus will be higher afterwards, but I won't give it the space. I won't create the emotional reactivity around this kind of spike, because I know that after having beer or a caffeine or something like that, my tinnitus will go down to its base levels again. I'm confident about that. That means when I consume these substances, I know in the first place already, okay, I don't have to worry. The tinnitus will start going down the next day or after a couple of hours, so I can safely consume these things. And the final tool and the third step that I want to mention you, and that will help you with your emotional reactivity towards the tinnitus, is using tools of acceptance and commitment therapy in a way that you let the emotions that are associated with this tinnitus spike really flow through your body. Yeah, it's called emotion, energy in motion. Yeah, and as soon as you let the energy go through your body, and really resolve itself, your brain then receives also a signal, okay, emotional reactivity is not needed here because we're not in danger. There is no reason to trigger the fight or flight instinct. And this is the best thing that you can do in order to keep the emotional reaction to a minimum, therefore furthering the chances that your tinnitus spike will basically go down to base levels, or that at least you feel much more calmer. You don't spend all this energy going through vicious circle of the tinnitus spike, getting this emotional reaction and so on and so forth, and freeing up a lot of energy in this way. And if any of this is unclear, then please let me know in the comments below. I'm very happy to help you put that into practice. As you know, there is my tinnitus emergency guide on my website at outringtinnitus.com/tinnitus-emergency-guide. In this guide, I tell you how the tools of cognitive behavioral therapy together with acceptance and commitment therapy work the best way in order to tell your brain that tinnitus is not a dangerous stimulus, yet you don't have to fear this. But this is something more that we'll get to in a video in the next week. For now, I would like to thank you for your subscription to Patreon. Let me know in the description below what you think of this video. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next clip next week. I wish you all the best with your tinnitus. Continue to outring your tinnitus. Life without tinnitus is completely possible. You can rebuild your life as it was before. I am the living example of this, and actually I'm pursuing my passion in helping you guys. So thank you very much for being such a supporter here on Patreon, and I'll see you in the next clip next week. Goodbye.